the creators who brought you RuPaul's Drag Race and $1 Million Listing. This is World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Hello and welcome everybody to this week's edition of the Wow Report. We're doing what we love to do, counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow.
Wow.
And I wouldn't be here were it not for the amazing Tom Campbell, our creative director, daily inspiration, James St. James, editor of the Wow Report, who are very nice to spend time with me once a week. And Blake too. Blake, who will be asking us some questions later on. And I, of course, am Fenton Bailey, co-founder of World of Wonder. So let's just dive in and start the countdown.
Number 10.
Number 10.
First of all, I apologize. I'm broadcasting from my phone in a trailer in Sylmar. So it's a very sexy life I lead. But I'll try to speak clearly, which is I spent all of Sunday night binging 6 episodes. They seemed an hour long. I have no idea. Of the documentary series, The Last Two Movie Stars.
I did the same thing. I can't wait to talk about this.
It is, for those who don't know, a documentary about the movie stars and married couple Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward. The premise is enough to fill up my entire time, which is Ethan Hawke, the actor, went to high school with one of the Newman children. They called him during the pandemic and said, would you direct a documentary about our parents as a couple? And he said, great. And he found out or heard that there were these, an author had been working for years who's passed away, who had all these recordings of Paul and Joanne and Gore Vidal and all the people they hung with and actors and all these kind of things and Paul's first wife and on and on. Well, then he finds out that those tapes were destroyed by Paul Newman at some point. He wasn't no longer interested. And so he's very depressed. And then he found out, Ethan Hawke, that they had discovered the Newman children, the transcripts of those tapes. So Ethan, in the middle of the pandemic, as demonstrated on the beginning of the documentary, where he is narrating the whole thing on Skype with people, he assembles his actor friends, George Clooney, Laura Linney, Mark Ruffalo, on and on and on, to perform the transcripts as a way of keeping them alive. So some archival video from the movies is also included, but they also include images from their movies that they don't put the sound out. They have nothing that sort of visually represent what the recreated interviews are talking about. So and there's interviews with Ethan Hawke kind of talking to his friends and his daughters and things. So at first my head hurt because I was trying to think, what's a real interview? What's a fake interview? What am I looking at?
And then there are a lot of real interviews interspersed from archival interviews from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s with Joanne and Paul Newman and Gore Vidal and everybody. So you have real interviews with them, you have fake interviews with them, but real transcripts with them. And I just want to interject very quickly to say that it's all very meta and it's all fascinating. And the idea is to try and rediscover Paul Newman's oeuvre, which he sort of got lost a little bit in the Marlon Brando, James Dean shuffle of the 50s. And he really is a seminal figure in cinema history, but he's more remembered for the race cars and the salad dressing and his big blue eyes than some of his actual movies, which we go back and rediscover HUD and Cool Hand Luke and all of that.
But it also when Paul Newman is such a hunk of man, and Joanne Woodward, again in this documentary, helps
with her oeuvre too. Yes.
But when they met, what's interesting to me is they met when they were both understudies for Picnic. Whoever Paul was understudying left the play, and so Paul ended up being the star of the play. They fell in love. He was married. They were together, Paul Newman and Joan Woodward, having an affair for 5 years while Paul Newman was married to another woman and raising young children.
But they also were. It was important to note that they were both at the Actors Studio at the time when the Actors Studio, Stanislavski and all that stuff was really, and so they're actors. And at the time, Joanne ends up becoming the bigger star and wins the Academy Award, and he's just sort of a hunk who is not being utilized correctly. And then later, his career really takes off, and hers, she stays home to take care of the kids and does prestige projects, but she doesn't ever end up nearing his superstar status.
That's kind of the amazing thing. When they got married, she won the Oscar for Three Faces of Eve, and he starred in The Robe, which is one of the worst pictures of all time. But then Joanne Woodward, who we kind of dismissed, she felt like she ended up helping raising the first 3 children of Paul Newman, plus they had 3 of their own. It's a very Connecticut story. And a lot of her ambition had to be balanced with raising a family. And she was jealous of Shirley MacLaine for getting all her roles. And Shirley said to her in these, honey, you got to have an image, which I think is such great inspiration.
One of the problems with this is it's such a deep dive. It is such an incredible micro investigation into their lives that it's 6 episodes for 6 hours of listening to Joanne Woodward's career really is a bit much. And as much as you love them and walk away realizing how incredible they were, does it really need to be 6 episodes?
I will just say I felt that way at the beginning. I hear what you're saying. I surrendered my Sunday night to Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman, literally the whole night. And
I did too.
By the end, it warmed me up, because any relationship that lasts is fascinating. You know what I'm saying? The sacrifice we'll make for each other. It's revealed, which I didn't really know. Paul Newman was basically a very high functioning alcoholic throughout the 70s and part of the 80s. Paul Newman had HUD and all those big movies in the 60s. Then he really flourished as a sex symbol, really, during Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid and The Sting. But after that, there was this lull where he was making kind of movies where he just sort of wasn't really being himself. Didn't really have anything to say. And then he did a movie called The Verdict, where he kind of played a version of himself who was he's a beat up lawyer, he's drunk, he can barely pull it together, but he still succeeds. And everyone thought he was going to get the Oscar for that, and he didn't. Paul never won the Oscar up to that point, but eventually does Color of Money with Tom Cruise.
Yes.
Which was an amazing moment of 2 huge movie stars.
But it was such a sellout. It really was.
You guys, you can obviously go on for hours on this. It does sound sort of fascinating. If very, I hate this word whenever it is used in my presence. If it sounds very niche.
A little bit. It's on HBO Max. It was produced by CNN. It is a little precious. And you just have to, if you want to surrender to it. The only thing I'll say which is interesting is Joanne Woodward. Surprising things is that Joanne Woodward said, I love my children. She was a real maternal person. She goes, I love my children, and I hope they don't feel bad hearing this. But if I had to do it all again, I wouldn't have had children. That it got in the way of her. At one point, she said her life, because it got in the way of her career. And she goes, I think actors are lousy parents. But and in the end, as we know, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward raised hundreds of millions of dollars for charity, which is a great legacy. Sorry.
That's a good note to end on. I think we're done. That's it for this show. Thank you for listening. We're going to move on to number 9.
Number 9.
Nope. I saw the movie Nope at the theater over the weekend. Nope, the new Jordan Peele, writer-director Jordan Peele. It is a horror, sci-fi, thriller, comedy. You're giving me a funny face, Fenton.
No, and it's filmed on IMAX. It's an IMAX movie.
Yes. So I saw it at the theater. It's he did Us and Get Out. He's very famous for working with Daniel Kaluuya. This stars Keke Palmer, Steve Yeun, who is so hot. Stephen Yeun from Walking Dead. And for you, Tom, it also stars Donna Mills from Knots Landing. Yes, it's a story. It takes place in the desert, and there's an alien spaceship maybe, who's maybe eating horses and eating people. We don't quite understand what's going on. There's also a story about a chimpanzee who goes berserk and eats all these people during filming a kiddie show. What happened was I was a little it's a scary movie, and I was biting my fingernails, and as I'm biting my fingernails, my tooth chips in half. My front veneer breaks, and I freaked the fuck out and started hyperventilating in the theater. All I could think is $3,000, $3,000, $3,000. How am I going to do this one? So I didn't see the last half of the movie. I have no idea what the hell any of it meant. So I just sat there with my hands covering my eyes, going, "Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit!" And my sister's like, kneeing or jabbing me in the ribs, saying, "Shut the fuck up." And so but apparently the movie is doing very well and it's very scary.
Did you love what you saw?
But if someone wants to explain to me what the chimp story was about, please.
I feel like all the reviews have said that it's fascinating, but people seem a little confused by it. They're afraid to criticize it. I don't know if that's true.
Well, it is true, and it is very what ends up being the real story is very. It's not what you think it's going to be. I do just want to sort of end up by saying that I got a temporary tooth fix right here. You can sort of see. You can't really tell. But the problem with it is that I can no longer bite into food. I have to chop everything up into tiny little pieces and eat on the sides of my mouth. I can't ever use my front two teeth for any food. So it is applesauce, pudding, and baby food from now on. And so
is that for the rest of your life, or is that just
I can afford $3,000 for a tooth? So it looks like it's going to be a couple of years.
The only thing you use your front teeth for is corn on the cob, right?
No, you think that until you actually realize that you can't ever bite into a hamburger, you can't ever bite into a bun, you can't ever bite into a piece of bread or noodles or anything.
James, get a blender and drink that hamburger.
Well, when we were growing up, we had a gardener named Old Joe, and he was about 90 years old, and he didn't have a jaw bone. It was taken out with cancer. And so every night we would puree the leftover food, and someone would have to go and bring it to Old Joe, and it would be like pureed steak or pureed, like catfish or whatever we were eating. And it was so disgusting. And so now I've turned into Old Joe.
All right. So that's a good review of Nope. It's the review is as mysterious, it sounds, as the movie itself. Number 8.
Number 8.
I want to ask your opinion about this. So the Gap, Yeezy Gap, right? Kanye West 2 years ago now did this huge deal with the Gap. Then nothing happened for 2 years, and now it's happening. And I think the actual name is Yeezy Gap, engineered by Balenciaga.
Oh,
and
God.
And the first thing I was aware of was this the Times Square flagship store of the Gap in Times Square, New York, completely sort of gutted, and they just put giant industrial bins filled with the clothes. And then I saw this ad, a video ad of a huge pile of clothes, just a sort of mountain of clothes, and then one store clerk in front of it at a black container, and there's a customer with a piece of clothing, and the store guy pulls out what looks like a gun. You feel it's about to get shot, but it's actually a scanner and scans it, and the whole thing is very dark, very minimal. And then the other thing they did was they did these dumps, these dystopian drops, where these black vans went to parking lots in cities, and they dumped all the clothes into basically dumpsters. And then people were allowed to dumpster dive. I mean, I think
that's disgusting. That is so vile.
It's all visually really weird. Everything's black. People in hoodies, but they've got a black face mask on, so you can't see their faces. They're wearing gloves. They're wearing Wellington boots. It's a lot Squid Game, actually, but in black.
Wait, did you ever watch Squid Game?
No, but it's that look. It's that sinister look.
Someday we're gonna get you to watch damn Squid Game.
I just don't know what to make of the whole thing. I mean,
here's the thing, because first of all, okay, Yeezy, I don't get the aesthetic of his designs anyway. Right. I think it's too I think it's silly and minimalist in a way that is not interesting. I think it's boring. I think he's crazy and isn't relevant anymore. And I think Balenciaga is overplayed and silly. So I think the whole thing is just ridiculous.
James says nope.
I say nope.
But earlier in the year, Balenciaga did that amazing fashion show in the snowstorm, and the models were carrying their clothes in black plastic garbage bags. And I was sort of conceptually sort of taken by this ultra minimal idea of, well, let's get rid of racks and hangers and let's not present the goods let's not do packaging. Let's just.
But I don't like the idea of putting it into a dumpster and have people dumpster dive for clothes, because that to me seems like it's fetishizing the how
it's a power play of sorts. It is, and it's very sort of sinister and
cynical.
Yeah, I don't quite know what to make of it. The other interesting thing is, as an alliance of brands, Kanye West, hotter than hot with his Adidas shoes, and then the Gap, which since 2013 has just been going down, 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 down. And, but then on the other hand, 2 years ago, they did this deal and there's only like 18 items that you can buy in a collection. Well,
that's what he always does. His collection is always like 3 beige, t-shirts with 3 beige pairs of shorts and a pair of beige, socks.
But that's the interesting thing too, is that I do see kids wearing, like, the trajectory of fashion seems to be less and less and less. And Balenciaga, like, okay, so the tape, wrapping Kim Kardashian in the tape was sort of a stunt, and carrying the clothes in garbage bags, sort of a stunt. But it does seem like just people are wearing onesies and sort of leggings. That seems to be it. Like,
I was way ahead of my time.
I don't know what to make of it. James, I hear what you're saying.
Relevant. I don't feel he's relevant anymore. I fear
I'm irrelevant, and I just don't get it.
No, I wonder how much they pay him, and how does it ever pay off? Like, how does it ever monetize? Do they really get more people in the store because they came in? Maybe they do. But it seems that's always the back of my mind. Like, how much are they paying this guy? And how would you want to be on how many conference calls would you want to be on with Kanye?
Well, that's lots of interesting things there, Tom, because on the one hand, Kanye is this artist who doesn't believe in deadlines and schedules and just does whatever he wants when he wants it. And the Gap, it's like fast fashion is a machine that runs on deadlines and very tight margins, and it's crazy.
I guess beige sweater sets never go out of style.
I guess not. You see, that's the weird. It's a complete mismatch in one sense, but in another sense, it might be a perfect fit. But I don't know what to tell you. I mean, there was one item they released before the 2 years that have passed, and it was a puffer jacket that had no seams and it had no buttons or zips. You couldn't close it. I don't know. I'm struck.
You're speechless.
I'm speechless. So Blake, take us to the break with a question.
What was the first European country to legalize same-sex marriage?
All right. We'll have the answer right after the break, because every month is Pride Month here on the Wow Report on Radio Andy.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. I'm Fenton here with James and Tom and Blake.
Yeah, and I asked a question. It's about a hot button topic recently, and our number one is about it. So you'll have to wait around to see what our number one is. What was the first European country to legalize same-sex marriage?
I'm going to say like a Denmark or Netherlands or something like that.
Maybe I'm going to go with Switzerland.
I'm wrong. I'm going to say Italy.
James, it's the Netherlands.
Well, there you go. Yeah. They are very progressive, aren't they?
Yes, they are. We are counting down the top 10 things that made us go, wow. We've reached number 7.
Number 7.
I'm going to make up for going over my first segment, which I think was largely interrupted by James. Who made all the points I wanted to make, but that's another topic. I'm going to hold that resentment till next week. There's one brief, beautiful thing you can do for yourself if you haven't already, and that is listen to Joni Mitchell performing live at the Newport, Rhode Island Folk Festival last weekend. Both Sides Now. She was considered dead at one point, had to relearn to sing, to walk. She's very fragile. I don't know how old she is. She's very old. And Brandi Carlile and Winona Judd were there. I always bow down to Brandi Carlile because she is the Lady Gaga of country folk. Because the way that Lady Gaga worked with Tony Bennett and Liza Minnelli, Brandi has worked with Tandy Tucker and regenerated her, and now with Joni Mitchell, and she was at Winona's, at Naomi Judd's memorial. But she did a lot of songs, and you can listen to all of them. But there's the song "Both Sides Now" is so simple and so profound that and I didn't know it when it first came out. I found it later, but like it really, again, I'm a simpleton, but like I listened to that song. I think she was 19 when she wrote it. It's like, how did someone of human from Earth think of those words and think of those songs and express those sentiments as purely and beautifully? Obviously, Judy Collins had a huge hit with it, but it's amazing. And it also reminds me of one more thing, and then I'm going to cut this short because I went over last time, is I used to say, after I saw Peggy Lee at the Hollywood Bowl in the 80s, in the last year of her life, when she was just seated and to perform, I reminded myself, become famous very young for doing something that takes very little energy. And you can do it your whole life. And that was Peggy Lee. Because she could be like, Viva, like sexy, or just in a chair. Viva, I'm on fire. Viva, all through the night. And to a certain extent, Joni Mitchell was able.
Is that all there is?
Yes. And Joni Mitchell was able to recreate her greatest hits because they're simple and their actual structure is, and their words and the sentiment is so rich. And just coincidentally, I didn't go see it, but Billie Eilish was at the Hollywood Bowl. I drove by, I didn't go in, saluting Peggy Lee and Frank Sinatra. And I thought Billie Eilish is famous,
crazy,
very young for doing very little, and she'll be famous for the rest of her life whispering those songs.
But also with the Joni Mitchell, didn't she had a series of strokes and had to relearn how to sing, which was because I watched the clip and read the story, and that was an amazing recovery.
Yes, she was she was. I think we thought she was dead at one point. There might have been false reports of her passing.
And doesn't she also suffer now from like Morgellons disease, which is that disease where the spikes come out of your skin?
I didn't know. I'm a wimp about medical things. I don't go too deep, but I just she performed many of her songs. But if you want to take 3-4 minutes, whatever it is, and watch her, it's like handheld. It's not professional. Just listen and watch her singing Both Sides Now, Joni Mitchell. I dare you not to well up with emotion and tears.
It's very beautiful. That was at the Newport Folk Festival recently.
I think it was her first time back on stage in 9 years or something.
Wow.
Awesome.
Let's go on to number 6.
Number 6.
Number 6, I watched The Gray Man on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen this. It's their big blockbuster movie of the summer. It stars Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Billy Bob Thornton, and Ana de Armas from West Side Story. And Ryan Gosling, handsome as ever, so great. I love him. He is a CIA operative, CIA assassin who is on the run after the CIA has decided that he needs to be eliminated, and so they've sent all the CIA to come and kill him. They put a bounty on his head, so he's on the run. He's in, it goes one of those movies. It's in Bangkok, it's in Shanghai, it's in Paris and Monaco, and every other scene is someplace glamorous, and they're jumping off buildings, and everybody's trying to shoot everybody and then shoot them up, bang bang bang. And there's some really amazing scenes. There's one scene where there's a plane that's exploding and he leaps out of the plane and he still manages to live, and he's so great. And Chris Evans, who is the bad guy, he's a psychotic evil guy who's trying to kill him. he's as far from Captain America as he's ever going to be, and he's relishing every moment of getting to play the bad guy. Ryan Gosling has not made a movie in 5 years because he has been with his he took 5 years off to be with his kids and his wife Ava, or his girlfriend Ava Mendez, and just leave Hollywood behind. So this is his comeback, his big comeback before the Barbie movie. And you forget just how, not only how handsome he is and how charismatic and just what a great actor he is. He's got this sort of George Clooney like, Brad Pitt like, just sort of like, he just tosses it off. It's just so effortless for him to be a movie star, and he is probably the biggest star on the planet right now if you think about it, who's working, like, Brad Pitt is still there, George Clooney is still there, but he's in that same sort of that genre, that area of movie stardom. And just to watch him and Chris Evans and Billy Bob Thornton all just sort of clash with each other, it's just a fantastic movie. It's very long, and we've seen this plot before 1,000 times, but they make it fresh, and I just really recommend it.
Oh, wow.
I read this. I can't remember who. I read it on Twitter, but someone was saying that it was a really bloody movie with an incredible body count, and they were disappointed by that. Did that cross your mind?
It's weird because there's so much carnage and so many bang, bang, bang. They take guns and they're just shooting up, and there's collateral damage, and citizens are being, buses are running into groups of people, and everyone's dying. And you keep thinking, this doesn't seem like 2022. It feels like something from the 80s. It's very weird to be seeing so much death and gun violence and buses exploding and people exploding. But it is weird. I will agree with you that it is very strange to see in 2022.
And it's a huge topic that can't be answered now, but like there is something about our fetishization in entertainment with violence and gun violence and everything else. And then our surprise when people sort of take mass shootings that they hear about for granted. I don't know.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And you feel like this was an act. There's like a theory behind it or a reasoning behind it that I just couldn't quite put my fingers on, but it did seem like a very archaic notion. You're right, I guess.
All right, that's The Gray Man on Netflix. Number 5. Trend alert. I mean, we've talked about this subject many times.
Here we go.
On the Wow Report. But I can report now that according to the New York Times, so it's real, it's official, there is a trend for cannibals. Cannibals are trending. And they're trending in the realm.
Have they ever been out of style, though?
Novels.
Not here.
Cannibal novels are trending. I am now going to talk about a book I have not read, but have every intention of reading before next week. It's called A Certain Hunger, and it is by a woman called Chelsea G. Summers, which is actually her pseudonym. And it's about a female food critic who eats men. And that is her raison d'etre. And
is this a metaphor for something, or is it?
Well, it's the New York Times, so darling, of course it has to be a metaphor for something. It's a history of the internet. Apparently, haven't read the book, couldn't tell you how eating men is a history of the internet. It has apparently democratized writing and steamrolled the playing field of criticism. Again, I couldn't tell you how. It does make the point there's a feminist argument about, that when it comes to serial killers, generally women aren't portrayed as serial. It's normally a man's job, and that, so the author said that, feminism comes to all things, but it comes to recognizing homicidal rage the slowest.
Interesting, because just this week there was a woman who went and was a mass murderer. I don't know if you saw the story. She went into opened fire, I think, at a grocery store. Where was it?
Dallas Love.
There was a woman but she didn't kill anyone, James. I don't believe.
She didn't. Oh, that's okay. Yeah, but it did sort of like stop me in my tracks, thinking, well, yeah. And
they sort of, the New York Times it's a sort of think piece. So where does this come from? Where is it going, and why? They say the Yellow Jackets really kind of fueled the success of this book. She couldn't find a publisher, but that pilot episode of Yellow Jackets that begins with a a cannibal kind of scenario, right? I haven't seen Yellow Jackets either. So
It's amazing. I know I haven't watched it either, but everyone is raving about it, saying it's the best show on TV.
And then, of course, coming up is Bones and All, Timothée Chalamet's new film.
Oh, well, but isn't that just the sequel to Tell Me You Love Me or Say My Name?
Call Me by Your Name thing. Same director, but I believe there's some cannibal.
Well, it's a shame they didn't have Armie Hammer, who was our most famous cannibal.
Well, there you go.
Thank
exactly.
you.
Well, my favorite.
We slam Armie for saying he wants to bite someone's toe,
and here he is on the cusp of a trend.
Exactly.
He's an early adopter, clearly.
My favorite book is a book about cannibals, 2 serial killer cannibals.
Oh, is that the Poppy Z Bright?
Yeah, Exquisite Corpse.
Oh, I do like that book. Yes, it's a really good book. And for those who want to know more, there's a book that's been out for some time called Cannibalism: A Perfectly Natural History. And Bill Shutt, the author of that, says that fictional plots about eating human flesh are as old as literature itself.
Well, you know, one of my favorite short stories of all time is Stephen King's Ladyfingers, in which there's the guy on the island and he has no food and there's no food and he ends up having to chop off one finger at a time and eat it, and he ends up eating his arm, and then by the end he's eaten his whole body. It's just
spoiler alert.
Thank you. Right.
Well, the book is 30 years old. I think I'd say you could.
Well, I've never heard of it, and I wanted to read it.
I want to suggest something. James has reviewed a movie he didn't complete watching. You've reviewed a book that you haven't read. I think we should do a whole WoW report where we just talk about things we haven't seen or read and give strong opinions.
Nobody's seen Yellow Jackets, and yet we're
Tom, that's what we do every week.
You're on to me. You're on to me.
You've just said the quiet part out loud, Fenton.
Hey, snatch your tickets to DragCon UK. It's in January, but giving you fair warning, because you can meet queens from Drag Race UK, Drag Race France, Drag Race España, Drag Race Holland, Drag Race Italia.
And USA.
And of course, Drag Race USA. It's going to be the biggest weekend in Drag Race history, happening January 6th, 7th, and 8th. Tickets at RuPaul'sDragCon.com. And since we're plugging things, I'll just remind you, tonight, the finale episode of RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars Series 7. Tonight, Paramount Plus here in the States, Craven Out TV in Canada, and Stan in Australia. And of course, everywhere else, Wow Presents Plus. We'll take a quick break. Blake?
Which state became the first to legalize civil unions for same-sex couples?
Civil unions.
As opposed to marriage, right?
Right.
All right. Which state? Okay, so it has to be in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The answer for you right after the break.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
Welcome back to the Wow Report. Benson here with James St. James, Tom Campbell, and Blake Jacobs.
Hi.
Hi.
I want to know if you guys know which state became the first to legalize civil unions for same-sex couples.
I believe it was either like Massachusetts or New Hampshire or something. Tom, what do you remember any of this?
I feel like it's Vermont or Massachusetts.
Oh, Vermont probably sounds right too. Yeah.
I'm going to say Florida, of course.
James and Tom, you're right. It's Vermont.
Yay!
There you go. There you go.
Why are we having this gay marriage theme?
Well, our number one just might have to deal with gay marriage. You'll have to stay tuned to find out.
I love
Blake
it.
knows how to produce a show, huh? Deep tease.
All right. All I can do is count, and even barely that. We've reached number 4 of the top 10 things this week that made us go, wow.
Number 4.
I'm going to keep it short because I realize I overspoke my first segment.
Oh, no. We are never going to hear the end of this one now. Oh, dear God.
But I want to talk about 3 people very quickly and with great reverence. First of all, Tony Dow, Wally from Leave It to Beaver, an iconic show, an iconic character, and a cutie pie. I think a lot of people's first crush, right? He was
definitely.
He was so hot, and I don't really even see in black and white.
Yes, I love that. And he has passed away. Rest in perfection, Tony Dow. He passed away of cancer. There was an announcement of his death the day prior to his death. He was in a hospice. God bless all the people in hospice who take care of people, and God bless Tony and his wife and children. And it's just, it's a selfish reaction because, Tony Dow and Wally from Leave It to Beaver is such just a pillar and a touchstone of pop culture and how we view the world. Leave It to Beaver especially. It's always, it's very Leave It to Beaver. She dressed like Leave, it's just such a touchstone.
And Eddie Haskell is I mean, so many of these, the names, so it's, and he was apparently until the very end, he would go to conventions, and he was very, with his gay fans, he was wonderful with them. He would sign shirtless pictures without ever, he was just apparently an all around wonderful guy.
And his career transferred into, he was a very active and productive director of television and things. So, he had a great career. I hope a great life. The other person who's very sick right now, I heard about it. I told you about this, James, yesterday. It's very upsetting. Is Ruth Buzzy from Laugh-In fame and more has experienced a series of strokes, according to the internet. I haven't stayed close to Ruth Buzzy because of Twitter.
I follow her on Twitter, and she's hysterical on Twitter.
She's hilarious. She tells funny jokes. She's
real
rude.
Dad jokes, real corny
yes,
dad.
She's rude without being lewd. And I heard the expression "Catterday" from Ruth Buzzy first. She loves her cats, and she posts something every Catterday. So sending her love and good vibes. I don't know what her prognosis is. She used to be a neighbor and a close friend of my friends Art and Charlie, who lived off of Malaga. I think she's in Texas now. But she's a great person and a great part of our comedy landscape. And last but not least, some good news. Norman Lear, 100 years old this week, and still productive and still bright. I mean, really, I said this to Randy Fenton, or at least to Randy, and Randy always goes, I'm like, we're in our Norman Lear years. Because, careers can come and go, and you think about retirement. And Norman Lear, while he changed his pace,
One Day at a Time. He just did One Day at a Time in his late 90s.
Yes, and Netflix. And there's going to be a special on it on ABC. And I, not that it's all about me, but I worked for Norman Lear. I forget this, but my summer of 84 to 85, I cast extras at Embassy Television, which is what his company was. I cast the extras for Facts of Life and The Jeffersons in their 11th season. So, and that was when Different Strokes was going on. It was the second wave, right? It was the 80s wave of Norman Lear. The 70s, of course, was All in the Family, Maude, all that stuff. So he really has, for me, who's learned everything from watching television, as RuPaul says, and who is still makes television, speaks in television, Norman Lear was such, and his mind and his brain and his creativity was such an important education for me as a young person, and I carry it with me today.
And also a lesson like never retire. Just don't stop.
Exactly.
Can I bring you down a little bit, though? Because I know you wanted to end on a high note there, but a couple of celebrities who are not doing well that I just learned about that were really upsetting to me. Barbara Walters, who is suffering from Alzheimer's and dementia, and is apparently it's quite bad, and she is agitated and angry, and she's not doing very well. And the other person who has very bad dementia and Alzheimer's is Jack Nicholson, who is incapacitated and bedridden and not doing too well either. And I just learned both those this week. And someone like Barbara Walters, who is so all about her brain and being, on top of everything, and it just really hurts me to think that she's suffering the way she is.
Well, back to my first segment, which went a little long. Joanne Woodward, Paul Newman passed away, but Joanne Woodward is living in dementia now, so her body's with us, but her mind is gone. So it's not a rare thing, but God bless them all and bless their families.
I will just tell you though, if you do live to be 100, you will get a letter and a birthday card from the Queen of England.
Well, not in America. Isn't it just British subjects get it?
I guess so, yes. But I was just going to tell, my godmother is 100 years old. And
wow!
She got the card.
That's so nice. That is because we in America, all we got was Willard Scott. We
had our face in a Smucker's jelly bottle.
May we all live to be many centuries old.
And we all live to get our face on a Smucker's jelly jar.
Here we are, age 600 years old. This is the Wow Reports. Number 3.
Number 3.
Number 3, I will keep this one short too. I watched the Bob's Burgers movie on HBO Max. I am a Bob's Burger fanatic. To me, it is like Golden Girls to you. It is my go-to every single night to go to sleep. It is the funniest show on television. It cracks me up. I am a Linda Belcher through and through. This is a full-length movie, and it's just sort of like a base. It's a longer episode than what it usually is, and it starts off with a big musical number, and they do really amazing musical numbers. They're very famous for their really fabulous over the top numbers. The best one that they've ever done is Bad Stuff Happens in the Bathroom, and if you ever get a chance to YouTube Bad Stuff Happens in the Bathroom, it is such an amazing. It belongs on Broadway. They could do a whole show about that. This is the Sunny Side of Summer is the opening theme song, and it's really fantastic. But the weird thing about this is this movie, and all this is the big point, is that it's scarier than you think. It is really goes very dark and very bleak, and there's some scenes that are just going to traumatize children, like Bambi or Finding Nemo. I'm just spoiler alert. And it's this whole plot, and you think that you should have kids. Like, I went to bed like thinking about. It's terrifying. So I don't know if we should actually cut that part out because it is a big spoiler. But it's very strange that there's. But there. I'm sorry, but it is. It's just it goes very dark and very bleak for a very funny show.
After reading Tom for spoiling, you just gave away the whole plot of the Bob's Burgers movie. Now, is it streaming on Hulu or HBO, James?
I think it's Paramount.
I think it's on HBO Max if it's on Hulu with a subscription.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh. What do I know?
Bob's Burgers movie is streaming on HBO Max. All right, number 2.
Number 2.
Sex in Space. I haven't talked about that before, have we? The new development is that apparently the Russians wanted to gather some sperm, and they don't elaborate why, but all the cosmonauts said no. Apparently having sex in space is not very easy or very comfortable or pleasurable.
I think that it's actually quite deadly. I think that not only does the fact that the sperm goes everywhere and into a million droplets and you bounces off of everything, but right. I think the actual act of trying to get an erection and pulling at it is deadly or painful.
I'm feeling embarrassed. Keep going.
You pulling it, James? What's going on here? Apparently zero gravity makes it shrivel somewhat, makes the penis shrivel. And yes, an expert, I don't know who that was, says that 3 female astronauts can be impregnated by the same man because sperm finds a way, as to borrow the.
Now how would sperm find a way in zero gravity? How would it end up?
It just floating around, and I guess a little tiny sperm. You can't even probably see an individual sperm, but I guess it knows where to go and has some.
Just what makes that little old sperm? Thinks he can move that rubber tree plant. Anyway.
But back here on Earth, Blake alerted me to this shocking story about a man who put Pop Rocks, the candy that you put in your mouth and it explodes. Well, guess what he did with that? He put them under his foreskin for an erotic thing. Now, James, you texted me that you had done this.
Oh, I was kidding, and you bought it.
I'm doing it right now.
I do it all the time. It's fantastic. I love it.
I'm doing it right now. Oh.
Yeah.
I did read that may have been an online hoax, though, Fenton.
Yes, I convinced it's not. It was one thing. It was in the Sunday Sport, which is one of Britain's. It's like News of the World, one of those tabloids that's completely full of fictional stories. Number 1. Number 2, It's 7 years old, this article. I mean,
Oh,
Blake,
yeah.
this is supposed to be the wow report. Things that make you go wow in the previous week, not the last 7
But
years.
it does make you think, like, what else can you do with Pop Rocks? Can you put them in
I
your
know.
butt?
I'm thinking
Can
of
you
it right
snort
now.
them?
I
What
mean, I
happens-
just saw the headline and I was like, this would be perfect for the show.
Right.
But what happens if you snort them? I mean, is your brain going to explode if you put it in your butt? Will your sphincter?
A normal person's brain would explode. James, yours wouldn't even register.
Well, apparently the problem for Gareth Pemberton was that after he
That is a fake name if I've ever heard it.
exactly after he had pleasured himself, he didn't think that he should perhaps wash his penis, and so the in the fleshy folds of the Pop Rocks kind of formed
The
a hideous
cheese
crust.
is what you're saying. The cheese got poppy.
And he ended up collapsing in the high street, had to be taken to hospital, and had to be undergo an emergency circumcision to avoid necrotizing fasciitis. So
I'm not going to try it myself, but it just sounds wrong. I put it in my mouth. It doesn't hurt us. It doesn't hurt your mouth. How's it going to hurt the head of your? I don't get it.
well, it's going to hurt you if you don't clean it out after you're done. That's the moral
But
of the
I imagine
story.
the cleaning out, if you add water to it, you're gonna pop. It's gonna pop all over your penis.
Well, I think that was the original. That was the idea, was it not? I mean,
Yeah, like sweat or like
The layers upon layers of this story.
all right, let's move on. Drag Race Down Under. Let's clean up the tone here. Drag Race Down Under premieres tomorrow, July 30th on Wow Presents Plus worldwide, of course, except Canada, UK, and Down Under, where it's on BBC, Stan, and what's on Crave, of course. So knock yourself out with that, and we'll be right back after the break with the number one thing this week that made us go.
You're listening to World of Wonders Wow Report. Things that make us go wow.
And welcome back to the Wow Report. Fenton here with Tom and James and Blake. We've been counting down the top 10 things that made us go wow, and we've reached number one.
Number one.
There was a gay wedding that happened this week, and the father of one of the grooms is a senator or a congressman. I can't remember.
It's Representative Glenn Thompson from Pennsylvania.
And he had just voted against gay marriage and gay rights, and then had the nerve to show up at his son's gay wedding. And the internet is, first of all, why would you invite your father? What is going on? Blake, do you want to continue on with this a little bit?
The son of Representative Glenn Thompson said he married the love of his life on Friday and that his father was there. And so Thompson's press secretary, Miss Madison Stone, she said Congressman and Mrs. Thompson were thrilled to attend and celebrate their son's marriage on Friday night as he began this new chapter in his life. They are very happy to welcome their new son-in-law into their family.
Well, it is that Republican thing of laws for thee and not laws for me,
Right.
but not for thee. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And the hypocrisy of so many,
Right.
COVID doesn't matter until it happens to me.
It's almost like it's a genetic thing where people can't actually show empathy. You know what I mean? They can only think of themselves and their family, and they can't actually like project that onto society and other people. It's really not surprising and yet always deeply frightening.
Well, just last week, the same spokesperson for the senator, they said in an email last week to a local newspaper, Stone called the Respect for Marriage Act nothing more than an election year messaging stunt for Democrats in Congress who have failed to address historic inflation and out of control prices at gas pumps and grocery stores. So just a week ago, they were singing a different tune.
Yeah, politics, yuck.
So,
okay. Well, there you go.
Anyway, I'd like to go back to my first segment and talk a little bit more about Joanne Woodward and Paul Newman, please. There's like 3 hours in the middle that we didn't even touch on.
Thanks for tuning into the Wow Report on Radio Andy Sirius XM. That's all we have time for this week, I'm afraid. But Tom, thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, Blake. And thank you all for listening. Same time, same place next week. Until then, go out and do something that makes the world go
wow.
Wow.